I think we all are. We thrive on humor. We can't get the job done without humor. We just can't. Sorry, but if you're not having fun at the job, then we're not going to be producing a fun result. And if the client's not having fun with us, they're not calling us back for the next round.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we have Feroz Khan with us, a photographer, a videographer. He also started the company Wheelocity with his brother Faiz, who was with us on the last episode. Help me welcome Feroz Khan.
Thanks for having me.
You have been a great help when we started Million Opinions, especially when it came to the camera, when it came to the editing and everything technical. You introduced us to various people in the industry who could help us and give us the best product for the best price. Thank you so much for that. I was told that you also helped Faiz and your dad start up Wheelocity from what it was. So you wanted to go on big scale.
Yeah, we wanted to introduce something a little different as compared to every other garage that was out there, and make it a bit more friendly, let's say, so that you would feel like it's a place you can come, you can, have a look at what's going on, and you don't have that inhibition you might have with a much bigger place or a dealership where you hand off your car and then take it back when they say it's ready. We take you through the whole process out there. It's completely transparent. We tell you what needs to be done. It's up to you whether you want to go ahead with it or not at the end of the day. But there's no arm twisting.
And you are also an engineer, computer engineer, is it?
I am a computer engineer, yes.
Okay. So Faiz complained that Feroz got into it in the beginning and then he just left Dad and I.
That's only because they were much better at it than I was.
Okay. So lead us through your journey. So from computer engineering, how did it begin?
I grew up here in Dubai. I was born here as well, let's say quite some years ago. And I was always into tech as a child. And growing up in the 80s and 90s, when computers and the internet started to get introduced in our lives, that was a direction I decided I wanted to take. Also with a major interest in computer graphics, which were something that fascinated me simply because I have a huge interest in movies. So that sort of led me towards computer science engineering after school got over. And 4 years of that were pretty interesting, to say the least. And that sort of set the platform for me to then get into aviation, which was something my family's been doing for the last 5 decades or so. We've been into aviation. I think in terms of our contribution to the aviation society in this country, we're looking at over 200 man years of work of just me and my immediate family to the UAE in aviation, at least.
Wow, that's quite a service.
That's across 3 generations.
I was told mom, dad, your brother and you worked in aviation.
Yeah, we all did, as did mom's sister, dad's brother, mom's father also.
So your granddad got you into photography. Tell us a little bit more about that.
He had a lot of interest in photography, and he's not with us anymore, but I always, whenever I pick up a camera, I think of him, because if it wasn't for him and it wasn't for that spark that he saw in me when I was maybe 4 or 5, where he let me, I would say, mess around with his cameras, which weren't an inexpensive thing back then. You all know how cameras were and how expensive they were back then, unlike now where you can just pop into any electronics store and get one at a much cheaper rate than before. So he encouraged me and he got me to learn about photography all on his cameras, many of which I still have today and I still use actively. And bless his soul, because if it wasn't for him, I may not have been where I am, or at least not at the pace that I got here, and as a photographer, how established I've been in the local community as such.
Well, you're an inspiration to many. I'm definitely one of them, and your brother speaks really highly of you and your photography skills and the knowledge that you pass on. But before we go there, after computer engineering, you did work in the corporate. Why did you leave the corporate?
I worked in aviation for a good 14 years, and I think it was when COVID hit that a lot of shakeups happened back then. Mm-hmm. And I'm not entirely discontinuing the fact that I may get back into it at some point, because I know I have a lot more to contribute to aviation and aviation IT as such. It was a bit of a sudden departure, let's say. And it's not I may at one point try and combine aviation and photography.
And that is why you are an air crash investigator and you have taken up the photography module in that.
I am a certified air crash investigation photographer from the US. It's not a profession you hope to practice.
Okay.
It's something that you have as a skill, you hope you never really have to use, because when I studied that module along with Faiz, some of the images we saw there, they look like war zones, let's say. Yeah. You can't unsee what you've seen there. And then you realize how you can't be a hero as an air crash investigation photographer. You're just out there to do the job. And sometimes, often, it's your pictures that are the documented evidence which lead an investigator to the conclusion of what happened during that crash. Sometimes that's all there is, because the evidence that's collected, there's a certain kind of degradation that happens over the years. These photos are the only things that remain as is. So you're out there to go get the shot, get what's required, and come back in the best possible way without messing around, without trying to do anything artistic. You're there to document the thing, and you're there to do that without emotion. You can't allow your emotions to come in the way, because truly what you see out there is something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. You have to put that all aside while you're doing the job.
Other than that, you also are a very well-renowned photographer and a videographer. You are a sports photographer, and I think I asked Faiz this one just to confirm that you're the only one who is not affiliated with any media companies or agencies.
To the best of my knowledge, yes. And that's because I started about 15 years ago when I was a lot younger. And it happened quite by chance, really. So I was invited as a guest to attend the Dubai World Cup. It may have been 2007 or 2008. I was there as a guest, and I went along with my camera and a massive lens back then, because I had an interest in taking pictures of the happenings around there. And one of the organizers saw me out there and just very politely asked me if I'd like to come back the next year and do some pictures for them. And I said yes, pretty much dismissing the fact that it was a real invite. I didn't really think he'd be serious about it. But the next year, they did send me a press pass, and that's where it all started for me. I was thrown in head first into the racetrack to get pictures. Sports photography, if you don't know what you're doing, is going to be really difficult to learn from, because you get seconds to learn from over there. You could be there day in, day out, and all the action happens in a matter of seconds. You're not talking about 4 seconds or less. So it took quite some years to really learn the way to get the best shot out there. And there are 3 things to that. You need to know your gear. There's no fiddling around when the horse is coming towards the finish line, wondering what setting to use on your camera. You need to know the sport. You need to really know the sport. You can't just stand there as a technical expert and say, I'm just going to freeze the action. No. You have to understand which horse might suddenly come out from behind and take the lead. And following the sport is important. Third thing, which might surprise a lot of people, is you need to even know the sports person. If you're photographing tennis, you're right there by the sideline. You have some of the best seats when you're photographing tennis, right next to the players. But if you don't know when Roger Federer is playing, if he's coming in to play a drop shot or a slice or lob it over the other player, you might miss the shot completely there. It is a tough ask, I'm sorry. But if you want to be the best at what you do, these are some of the things you need to take care of.
There are many companies who give you the equipment to probably say or give your expert opinions. Do you want to mention the brands that you currently are writing reviews about?
I do reviews for a lot of brands. I've been working with Nikon for quite some time now. When I say working with them, I mean in the sense that they've really supported my career as a professional photographer, whether it comes to getting my gear serviced or getting equipment from them to test out. They've valued my opinion on a lot of occasions where I've given them feedback on new gear. They've taken that all the way up to Nikon HQ in Japan, worked on things that I've said, to introduce in future models, for example. Sometimes you can't sugarcoat what you're saying. And that's only because you need them to produce something better as compared to any other brand. You need them to introduce something that's necessary for a professional to use. So they do value that kind of professional feedback a lot, because at the end of the day, you're their customer. And if they're not giving you what you want, it's an open playing field now.
You're also the main videographer and photographer for Last Minute Productions.
I am the main photographer there, yes.
So that one also requires working a very different kind of hours. So it's not necessarily an 8 to 5 job. Sometimes you tend to go early or work late nights, more into when the customer or the clients want you. How do you balance that and your family time?
That leaves the rest of the day open. So it's odd hours. It's sometimes really unusual hours. I remember there was a time where we spent a whole night in a shopping mall. But to be honest, I've been able to balance life better doing that, because it's not my hours always that I work, but I'm able to prepare my schedule a bit more in advance. And I was able to see my son grow up, which was something I think I would have missed doing a 9 to 5. I'm his bus shuttle right now to school and back, but still I consider that a privilege. I would have really missed out on those years when he was growing up, and they grow up too fast. You know what it's like. You blink and then one day they're in school, the next day they're in high school. It just goes by like that. Each of those moments that I got to do that, I still consider as a privilege.
You have a corporate experience. You also are currently working much more freer because it's your business. Which one would you prefer over the other?
I thrive on close deadlines. I mean, our company name says that. Growing up, our school projects and assignments were always done at the last minute. Literally. We'd be sitting the day before, me, my granddad, Faiz, we'd all be filling in, not doing a bad job. No, but we'd thrive on that pressure that came at the last minute. The company's name came about from that. It was literally a few weeks before, I think, a few months before we set up. We had to do a film, an internal film for the office, for an office event or an office party. And we shot that the day before the deadline. And we were sitting and thinking, a good film needs a kind of, a production name. So what do you put? I said, Last Minute Productions. And that's where the name came about, and I carried that over to the company as well.
So Croydon, Faiz and you are friends, so you know each other for the longest time. And I'm assuming your thought process is also very similar. So Madonna gives a very different kind of perspective.
Madonna is very well tuned as well in terms of how we think. But sometimes she just sees something that we completely miss out.
Right. Who is the most calmest in the group?
Depends on what day it is.
Who's the funny one in the group?
I think we all are. We thrive on humor. We can't get the job done without humor. We just can't. Sorry, but if you're not having fun at the job, then we're not going to be producing a fun result. And if the client's not having fun with us, they're not calling us back for the next round. I want to go back to something you said earlier about, what I said about getting a rush out of doing things at the last minute. It was there in the corporate world as well. I started out as a programmer, software programmer, and I wasn't great at it. I had no life at all when I was doing coding, because I would take a long time to do code, and I'd come back at home and all I'd be doing was thinking about what code I'd do the next day. And this went on for a year and a half until I switched departments to the airport IT networking side of things. We're talking about 100 plus airports around the world, aside from Dubai. Networks need upkeep. They need it done right away, because when a network is down, an airline can't take off. And then we're talking millions and millions of dollars for the airline is delayed. My job out there was to make sure this happened in record time. And I was doing it all sitting in Dubai. So if an airport in France goes down, I need to speak to somebody on site there to understand what's happening. I need to know why a printer's not working or why a baggage scanner's not working. Tell them what needs to be done over there in case they can't fix it. And I have to do this over the phone. Half the time conversing with someone whose first language isn't English. There were challenges every step of the way, but this was something I really, really enjoyed. Getting that done as quickly as possible to save the airline from having to delay a flight or get unhappy passengers on board. Because as a passenger, when you're standing in front of a check-in agent and something's not working, the passenger is frustrated. That then translates into frustration for the agent. The quicker you get things done out there, the better it is for everybody to get on with takeoff. Sometimes it was calls in the middle of the night. I mean, when you're asleep at 3 a.m. and you get a call, it's a little hard to translate what's going on. But that urgency factor was always there for most of my time out there. And I enjoyed that much, much, much more than coding.
What plans for the future, Feroz?
Tough question, really. I mean, it's open, isn't it?
It is. You're wearing many hats. So what is the thing that you have in pipeline that you can talk about?
One thing that I can say with certainty is that I will still have a camera in my hand wherever I go. That has been the case since I was a kid, and I will do everything possible to keep that going as far as I can. I think everybody should get into photography in some way, because at the end of the day, when we look at pictures from the past, we see something that wasn't there or we see something that we experienced and that we know is different now. I do think we owe it to future generations to document what's going on in life. And I don't mean just what's happening inside of our homes. Anything that we see outside which you think might change tomorrow deserves documentation. And unlike before, it's possible for everybody to do that today. We're all recording history. We all should be recording history. Because when I look at Granddad's pictures of Dubai from 30, 40 years ago, and I see very different things over there today, sometimes it's only that picture that's there to remind me of what it was like. And here's another thing I really think people should be doing is taking more pictures of themselves. I don't mean just taking snapshots. Go down to a studio, get a picture of yourself done. We used to do this as kids. Every year we'd go down to a studio, get a family picture done.
Also a professional
shot. Don't take a selfie. Get everyone together with the family members. Get a proper shot taken. And you'll be surprised in 5 years how different things are. And always look at the world around you like a tourist. We go to work, come back, every day we take the same route. Take a different route another day. Or go down the same route, just walking down it. You'll be surprised how many different things you see, which when you're in a car, it's like tunnel vision. When you walk, it's a different experience. See the world like a tourist. Tourists look everywhere around them when they're in a single spot. They don't want to miss a thing. And when you start seeing things that way, you'll find so many more things to capture with your camera. And that's the essence of life, I think, just to be able to absorb everything that's around you in the limited time that we have on this planet. If we don't take advantage of that, 10 years down the line, you'll be like, oh man, I really should have done that. Or, I've lived here like 4 decades now. I can still walk by a place that I've been and find something new almost every other time because I want to look at it from a different way. You walk by a building, get into the building and go right to the top if you can and see city looks like from there. Take a bus if you don't take a bus. Take a train. These are all different routes. You can visually absorb something different. When you see something differently, you're inspired differently. And that really changes your outlook towards life. Yeah, one other thing I'd like to say is to all the parents out there, photography is expensive. But there's a saying that really caught my eye some years ago, and it says, get your kids into photography at a young age, then they'll never have money to buy drugs.